Today, inside the program, Radio Democracy go begin look inside the different things them we President Biu don't do inside the last 5 years since then declare him as the winner inside the 2018 election. Well, April 4, 2018, the National Electoral Commission declared President Biu as winner of the 2018 election. 5 years from that ended to now, how far President Biu don't go for implement development agenda them, like for reduce the wastage and also generate income and manage the state economy and also improve the living condition of Salon people. For can look at the issues there so inside the program, Ali Abedon introduced the presidential, the press secretary to presidents, we now Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, and also inside the studio, we don't be joined by Thomas Dixon, a journalist and social commentator. Good morning, Thomas Dixon, and welcome to the program. Good morning, Salon.
Good morning, and thank you very much.
Continue for stay with me. So the program I come to Yusuf Keketoma Sandi as sadly the basis for listeners them 5 years back. The National Electoral Commission been declared President Biu as the winner after the 2018 election. From that ended to now, as the press secretary, President Biu been the head of the present government. How far it don't go for implement development agenda them?
Well, thank you again once again, Musa. But also make a start for tell Salon family them all plenty thank you for the support they don't give to the president and this government for the past 5 years. Whether you vote for president in 2018 or you know vote for president in 2018. But I want to say thank you on behalf of the president because throughout these 5 years we don't implement plenty programs, plenty activities, and plenty policies the way the government put in place. Maybe some say you know vote for president in 2018. But during these past 5 years, you see, say presidents don't try for put, for instance, the Gender Equality and Empowerment Act together, where you like and where you support. I want to say thank you for that day. Maybe again, you know, vote for president in 2018. But you see, say the president implements the free quality education program. We don't benefit and give people access about 3.1 million. You like that policy there and you support them. I want to say thank you. Maybe you know vote for president in 2018. But like my brother Thomas Dixon, a journalist. So he supports president, where president try for repeal the criminal seditious libel. I tell journalists them back, thank you for that day. Maybe again, you know, vote for president. But you see, say president try for make sure, say, consolidate with peace and try and carry the Bintumani 3 conference. We put together people them for make we see, say, how we go establish the peace commission. You be like that particular policy and that programs there. I want to tell you thank you. For discuss what presidents don't do, they go find for lay the basis in the context for make I talk about 2 important factors. One of them factors there are the question where I want start for acts. Waiting presidents be inherit in 2018. Because for make you understand what president do, we therefore begin judge them by that day. By 2018, where president take over, we realize say the APC in 2017, we don't declare this country austerity measures. We mean say at that time, we are the only country and the only government will take over with austerity measures. But you not stop there. The economy was almost on life support machine and crash them because we get huge external and domestic debt. We also get huge state liabilities. We also get double-digit inflation. And because of the fiscal indiscipline and the rampant corruption we be there, in 2017, IMF be done suspend and disbursement and support to the government of the APC, the World Bank, European Union, African Development Bank. They all also be done withhold them budgetary support in 2017. Now, this also means say by the time we come by 2018, what you also inherit was the fact say international reputation be really better because of corruption. The standards in education we don't drop drastically. In fact, at a point in time, we see there was a video where we come away picking them with the tooth bench for go sit MPSC. Corruption was a lifestyle. Mining sector, the communities not be the benefit. Corporate responsibility was almost absolute nothing. Infant mortality and maternal rates now be worst among the world, and the health sector will be almost dysfunctional. Access to energy again and electricity supply was like 16%. We also be getting with laws, obnoxious and unprogressive legislations. And then we get exorbitant cost of road construction and we them they do due to rampant corruption and then be poor quality. We remember say even Wilkins Road where them be do, it was 5.2 kilometer road where them be with 50.5 billion, but later they increased to 80.3 billion.
Okay.
So that was one of the things then we I want to talk about as a context where we need it. The second factor we I want to talk about now that whilst then senior be done day will not be huge deficits in terms of what they can need. But also, as we take over, we get two twin global crises we having. One of them will be the COVID pandemic.
Keketoma, we look at the issues then but we look at what President Bill don't achieve inside this last 5 years.
For make a go day, I go find make argue this context, and I make an important argue this context.
In context here, Natio na don't raise some different people don't engage you directly. The challenge them are clear and out there, so people go really want to know how una step in for make the change.
Well,
so then challenge here to more better living of citizens.
Okay, well now I go tell you quick. I just done that. So we also will come. We get two twin challenges of the global crisis: COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine. In fact, according to the IMF, the global crisis, they almost cost the global economy about 10 trillion dollars. Now, it also means that the effect of this, not that. Even countries like US, last year the inflation was at 40-year high. UK 40-year high. Canada 40-year high. Now, with then two factors then there, President be anchor the New Direction Manifesto on one simple thing: human capital development, free education. And as a result of that, in August, President, through to award and vision, because of talk and do man, we implement free quality education. So 5 years, what we don't do for increased access to education? Firstly, we increase the budget for education by 22%. We're now one of the highest in the world and in Africa. We also make sure say we don't provide textbooks, learning materials for about 12,000 schools across this country. We don't increase salaries for teachers 3 times. The first term, we do 10% transport allowance for junior teachers them, 30% in 2020, and 45% we plan or don't start from 2023 to 2025. We also make sure we don't recruit over 12,000 teachers, train about 25,000 teachers. We also don't make sure say school enrollment don't increase by 37%. So we mean say we meet the school enrollment about 1.9 million. We don't put that to 3.1 million. But we'll not stop there. The retention rate of people in our school will increase by 129%. We don't make sure, say, during this program, President they provide feeding for school picking them across this country for more than 600,000 picking them. We don't increase the number of schools them across this country by 13%. So we increase them from 10,747 to 12,608. So that's now what we don't do on education. But then we not just stop at education, because the human capital development also gets to include the health sector. So what we don't do for the health sector? For the health sector, we also make sure the president can do in these 5 years, we don't increase the budget on health sector by 98%. So we meet them at 6% in 2018. Now we don't increase them to 11% in 2020 and 11.6% in 2021. We don't say health sector not go function without health workers. So we don't also make sure say we recruit over 5,000 health workers. But we not stop there. We make sure say back we don't increase the health infrastructure. So for instance, we 80-bed Kirama Road Hospital where they, the 100-bed hospital where they now Okupa, and plenty in them. But we not stop there. We don't make sure say for the very first time, we don't reduce the maternal mortality by 38%. We lower the MMR from 707 and 17 to 443 deaths per 1,000 live births in just few years. This achievement means say, waiting government to achieve just alone for reduce the maternal mortality, is low past the sub-Saharan countries. So in Guinea, for instance, the maternal mortality rate now 553. In Liberia, now 652. In Nigeria, now 1,047. In Kenya, now 530. But in Salone, now 443. So that's a huge improvement. But we'll not stop there. We also don't make sure, say, as I speak to you now, there is ongoing rehabilitation of all the 16 government hospitals across the country with government they pay for. We make sure, say, back, we don't try for increased health facilities across the country. So in 2019, we get about 1,397 health facilities. But in 2021, we increase them to 1,569 health facilities. We also don't make sure, say, we don't increase across this country. CHCs in Bombali, we get, in Kaine, in Putloko, in Pujaun, Boku place them, with good facilities there. But we will not stop there. We remember, say back, because women them, but they suffer where they get belly from remote areas them, we introduced the National Ambulance Service.
Okay.
What we introduce them, then get up make sure say we don't try for save about 40,000 lives across this country.
We did listen to Yusuf Keketoma Sandi. We cancel with other studio guest Thomas Dixon. Thomas Dixon, you don't listen to Yusuf Keketoma Sandi. They highlight some of the areas them where the government don't intervene since then elect them in 2018, and we look at some of the policies and some of the stance of President Bio before he became president in 2018 in terms of reducing wastage or blocking the leakage, not being popular, phrase them inside in campaign, and also ensuring that he provide bread and butter, fight against corruption, reduce travel expenses. When we look at some of the areas where President Bio been stand for in 2018, Louis starts with the issue of improving the living condition of the ordinary Sierra Leoneans through the bread and butter.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think, say, Mr. Keke, in social development, economic development, when the question where you asked me about infrastructural development and political development. I see Mr. Keketoma talk a lot about social development in education and health. Coming to your question particularly, and I see in a precursory remark, he talk about the economy briefly. I think the president promised for bring inflation from double digits. If you look at him in first, the maiden address to Parliament, he say they bring inflation from double digit in 2018 when have been 14.6%. They bring them to a single digit. That's, I must say, enable for achieve them. Inflation is over 40% in Sierra Leone. And he also tell we say, in terms of economic development, say they increase domestic revenue mobilization. I want to say now, when the president came into power in the first 3 months, I mean, they give we analysis of revenue where they generate, where they mobilize. But after 3 months, they stop giving us analysis about this revenue. We don't know how. He also say they tackle expenditure, and in government now they resort to domestic, to bank borrowing. And also, they reduce the domestic high domestic debt and external domestic debt. There are many other fiscal policies that we talk about in terms of the economy, and also monetary policy. In terms of monetary policy, promise for there we get an improved exchange rate, where he say that will be based on the diversification of the economy. If you look at the maiden address, you will see and they clearly he talk about that. When you look recently, the IMF pulled a report about 25 poorest nations in the world. And if you look at that report, Sierra Leone is the second bottom poorest nation as per GDP, as to GDP per capita. Meaning, among the poor nations of the earth, Sierra Leone, we are the second poor nation. We go say populipo. Now we are the second populipo in the world. We mean the president, this government able to remove Sierra Leoneans from poverty in 5 years. With regards to government expenditure, they tell you, say, government they expend more than how government they generate revenue. But one go say that is due to the defense of government will always be say it's due to the employment of nurses, it's due to the employment of teachers. But what we know is that there are many offices where government don't create where they conflict the other office. Some of these offices were not necessary at all. And this president in a manifesto, we also talk about the excessive traveling of the former president. We also get an economic impact. Get an impact on the economy. Talk about the excessive traveling. But this president, I must say, has also traveled more, spending beyond 50 billion yuans on traveling. We also get a cost on the economy. If you read the annual unedited financial statement of the government of Sierra Leone, we come on September 2022, you go see some of these analyses of waiting and non give to government, to the president, the office of the president in 2022 alone, which is above 20 billion for travel, overseas travel. In a country where the excuses where my brother give, they are redundant. They are redundant now. The COVID, the Russian-Ukraine war, individual country then they find solution, individual solution, than they target people away in a government, and more especially people away close to the presidency. A case in point is the 2020 audit report, where unveils the office of the first lady spend hugely without documents and no deal. Waiting the anti-corruption commission see. They say that they go investigate from 1930 from Anes by Kuruma in WEF. Okay. Instead of looking at the issue at hand.
Thomas Dixon.
They're not one. So in terms of wastages, for me, Mr. Keketoma, where did he come? In terms of wastages, for me, we see last year, year before last audit, we are in forgery of receipt in the office of the president was mentioned. And we will not see any action be taken. We will not see like the office of the president, like, sometimes not the president can involve. The president not can actually involve. You can get vote control, but we need to see action. Who that go for this receipt? Who that go hire a pharmaceutical company for go serve as traveling agency instead of looking for a qualified certified traveling agency?
In all of this, where you
will not see the implementation.
Thomas Dixon, in all of the things that you don't state, it totally the opposite of waiting Kekebe earlier state.
Yeah.
So for this 5 year down the line, you see that all the things we Keke don't point at, say, this administration don't do. And what you see, is it that there has been a misplace of priority?
In fairness, I will tell you, say, this government, in terms of economic policy, don't implement the single treasury account.
But in all of whatever government they do, now to make sure, say, the livelihood and survival of people
I'm coming,
easy.
in fairness.
Economic challenge.
I will tell you, say, they don't implement the single treasury account, which is good. But the question where my brother asked about wastages, are wastages still then they occur? Then they still occur.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't mention that. And some of these economic things I already mentioned, they impact the poor man negatively. You see, for example, we don't get inflation on rise. Hyperinflation now will get so in our country. The cost of bread and butter, the cost of rice, the cost of palm oil.
Thomas Dixon, the Auditor General's office now like the barrier between the public and the public officials in terms of transparency and accountability. And you make mention of the suspension of the Auditor General. This get any impact on transparency and accountability?
It get huge impact on transparency. That is why, for example, we've been the score before now, 3 years ago, we've been the score 80% and above in the MCC scorecard in the fight against corruption. We reduce about 4%. Why do you think we reduce about 4%? Because accountability institution, and just go read the US human rights report who I mentioned. The story about Sierra Leone on corruption is terrible. Even the Auditor General, in case they mentioned that the Auditor General is being intimidated. She was removed. Observers then say that they remove her not a proper winner because of a do certain things, a audit certain institution way to the government enough for audit. That is what observers said in the report. That report is available on U.S. Human Rights Bureau. You go get it. You go see what in right about Sierra Leone. So for me, first of all, I think we spend excessively, sometimes unnecessarily. If you talk about COVID, that COVID don't affects economy, I agree. COVID affects your economy like all other economy. You go share Ukraine will affect your economy like all other economies. But individual countries take individual action. For example, coming to the question about the least people, the basic, look at energy. It is in the period of COVID. For let government empathize with the people and reduce the energy tariff, we increase energy tariff. So are there people who been they top up 50,000 euros and you get 30,000 a unit? Now you meter. Now you top up 50,000 euros. Now 10 euros you get. 10 units. Now you get. That 10 units now for a few days. So it also don't affect our government for going look at the energy sector. In England, we mentioned energy government cut down on energy expenses hugely in the COVID period. So that it not go affect the layman. Coming to the internet, the I call them internet through the browser and so on and so forth. You see who government increase tariff instead of bringing tariffs, and we not get any knowledge for say even at the sub-region where COVID they increase tariff. We so side them BBC interview the NatCom PRO and we enable for defend the increment in tariff.
Thomas Dixie, will they come back to you?
These are all things affecting.
Will they come back? Will they come back to you? Yusuf Keketoma, will they come? We don't get you. If we don't get you bite. If you don't get you bite, yes. If we don't get you bite. If you don't get you bite. Since things plenty things and they for discuss. So we they narrow the programs down to the things that we President B don't say before election. We it been say people for vote for him. It change them things here. One, now for ensure say improve the living condition of the people through improve the economy, reduce wastage or block the wastages, provide bread and butter, fight against corruption, reduce wastage by reducing travel expenses. We don't get Thomas Dixon, don't get invite on that. So they come back to you because all them things are going to get direct impact on the living condition of the ordinary Sierra Leoneans. Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, continue positivity. We come to you, no worry, they get bite.
We don't get too angle from Ona. I mean, highlight some of the things on government on do. You'd also talk about the challenge and all that things where you say don't be a blockage and things where you say still within challenging the yet see development don't take place. But you don't hear it also from Dixon. I mean, on a view them total day in opposite of which you talk and also of waiting in safe don't state. From Dixon in point of view as a press secretary and also as somebody who is the parts of the running of the state of affairs, which he was saying in line of the things where Dixon highlight. He talk about wastages, excessive travel, the way on the under corruption, on the peak on past government workman them increase on
Well, you know, in direct opposites because I deal with two different areas.
But you're not talking about volunteer.
Exactly. So I want to respond to waiting Dixon. I will take one after the other. So Dixon talk about president for reduce from double digit to single digit. I just want to make a reference and tell Dixon say in March 2021 we reduce the inflation to single digits 8.95. March 2021 we reduce the inflation to single digits 8.95%. In fact, in February of 2021 it be 10.85%. But by March, we reduced to 8.95%. So in the first place, President indeed at some point, it will reduce the inflation to single digit. Now, Dixie also talk about domestic revenue.
But that be sustainable?
No, so now I start by giving a context. And the context where I tell you say, throughout these 5 years, government achievements and what we don't be affected by two factors. Let me give that context there. And because of the COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine, it makes sure say this is sustainable. And even tell you say the head of the IMF tell you say the effect of COVID-19 on the global economy now about 10 trillion US dollar. The same COVID don't make you America the inflation by 40-year high. So this is not only Salone. So I want to take Dixon one after the other. So that's now for the single digit. Secondly, talk about domestic revenue. When we come in as a government, we meet domestic revenue by 2017. It was 12.3% of we GDP. By 2018, we move on to 13.7% of we GDP. We mean say we increase domestic revenue. In fact, by 2019, we increased domestic revenue further by 14.8% of we GDP. Again, because of COVID, where COVID happened, what's happened? We get a reversal. So we mean say the revenue collection we'll make in 2020 it reduced to 13.8% of we GDP. So for make you say that the COVID not affect your economy or nothing, it is not correct because these are the facts. It gave systematically all kinds of how we meet them and the improvements all they make. But we not only stop there. Dixie also talk about expenditure, wastage, and all that kind of thing. So on public expenditure management, what's happened? In 2017, what do we meet? The expenditure be there about 24% of GDP in 2017. Where we can say in 2018, we reduced it to 21.4% in 2019. But again, despite this reduction we'll make, because the COVID kind inside 2019, we get a reversal. So this they tell you say, even the COVID will happen. The expenditure because of COVID, it rose by 25.7% of GDP in 2020. These are facts and they are figures. So what is they say? They tell you say, Usai we come in 2018, the side will meet the country, we begin make drastic improvement. But by 2019, 2020, once COVID came inside, there was a problem. They can talk about also excessive traveling. When you meet your country, international battered image. You meet in 2017, the IMF, because of fiscal indiscipline, because of rampant corruption, they don't abandon your country. The World Bank, the African Development Bank, what do? You not get for seats that just your country. You get for engage. So I go give you an instance. Dixon say it costs about 50 billion loans, right? How much are 50 billion loans in dollars? That, for instance, probably will give about 500,000 US dollars. Yeah. We go to America. We go engage the World Bank. We go engage the institutions there. We also the big sure they support for education. What did they do? They gave us over 50 million US dollars for can support with education and also can support with budget support. But we'll not stop the only one come. On the excessive travel, what did they talk about? We go FOCAC, na China. When we go FOCAC, president engage the Chinese government. Now in promise to say they will come build for a foreign academy. What's happened? Look, foreign academy. It is cost millions of US dollars. So essentially what it means? It means say whatever money president spend per travel, it is far less by way to achieve. But we not only stop the Suma. President went to Senegal. We go Senegal, like go engage the Suma people there. So we engage them. As I talk to you now, we get a brand new airport. We cost about 270 million US dollars. So it means say even if president spend $100,000 for go, but in return we don't get $270 million as an infrastructure.
But there's an interest payment. I mean, no matter what, Salon gets for payback. So it's not like a total free or direct benefit of people, specifically on the Suma project on the airport.
So it's zero debt. It not get no debt on Sierra Leone.
No, but whatever the airport it generates right now, it's not coming back to Sierra Leone.
Yes, but what the president did say was we need to get any infrastructure where they put debt on Sierra Leone. And at that, it don't achieve. But we'll not only stop there. So also talk about
quick one.
Quick one.
Yes, it's not Dixon. It's not Dixon. It's about President Bio's achievements in 5 years. Now, we also look at the travel and the wastage where President Bio been saying the block. Now you don't address the issue of the travel, and this now one of the areas them we President Bio been criticized heavily that when he come as president, they ensure say reduce travel expenses. Was it that at that moment not think say travel being important?
So because
the previous government was wasting a lot of money on travel.
Because the travel they add any value to Salon. So I don't tell you say
what's the evidence for that? See, because the previous government travel not add anything to the
give me one example of infrastructural program where former president Kuruma travel way out of Salon where he can on Salon. Give me one example.
I'm not working at the, I'm not
No,
working at the
no,
last
give me one example. But you say,
I'm not
you say
working at the last
example.
administration.
Exactly.
I'm not working at the last
So,
administration.
but if you don't get the
as
fact,
anybody, but
Kekelo
I'm
focus on
saying,
president in
I'm
5
saying
years.
now, Keketoma Sandi, this was stand of something President Baby stand against travel. Say it did reduce travel expenses, but according to like statistics, it don't travel more. And you say now is very much important. I just they say at that time was you not aware that the previous administration self maybe been the travel for ensuring they carry some of them
but
development.
they're not carry they're not carry nothing. That's the point that they make.
I will talk that you been
Because
there
you
the
don't
last
get evidence for show me. Me don't show you
So
evidence
now,
of president it travel.
we dey look at-
Let
Let me focus on president being 5 years in office.
yes.
You understand? Let me get if you're able to point out at tangible things and way you will say this administration don't do. And from what you don't see so far, you don't highlight so many things that we see in a development. But when we look at Salon and the dynamics, the way of survival, infrastructural development, most time people can say, but we're not team for it now we want. Let we come on a tree to come on a door, we able get still the care gonna house for let when family go survive. So with Salomon, they talk about the understanding of Salomon mentality of development and in survival for the day. And we look in that particular context, say now one way people don't say don't they be a very key challenge. We look at commodities, the availability of farm and accessibility of farm is so challenging. What you will say in line of that on economic living of people, the bread and butter issue.
So if you call person in America now and ask and say how America, it go say America hard. If you call person in London now, you ask and say, hey, how London, it go say London
You
hard.
think so that comparison is necessary?
No, the premise what they learn at the fact say, waiting ever salon they go through is not unique to we. Now the question is not about hardship. The question about how we government they respond to this hardship. So I will give you even different scenarios then. On the 20th of March, 4 countries in Africa, South Africa, Tunisia, Kenya, Nigeria, they all go on the street for travel for protest for waiting, high cost of living. Kenya is experiencing one of the worst economic situations. In fact, almost they run out of dollars. Kenya.
What in Salon don't do, what in President Bill don't do for respond to the economic hardship of citizens. Let's forget about the comparison of other country. We know say there's a general or global economic challenge. Let we focus on with the people in the Sierra Leone. What has been done? 5 years in office.
So I want to give you down there now. So at the height of where we get the COVID-19, what's happening? We realize that the most important thing we need to do for make sure we get availability of commodities. So for instance, on rice. Because president no say rice now is staple food, what we do? We make sure we maintain 0% on import duty and GST. So we mean say then they cost we about 1.455 trillion from 2019 to 2020. This is money for country government. But we no only stop there. We also make sure we defer certain tax system. And also we make sure we reduce taxes. So for instance, we get like cement, import duty on cement. We reduce them from 20% to 10%.
You didn't know the current price of bag of rice and cement right now?
Yes, I'll give you that. In fact, I go even go further than that. I even give you analysis of African countries and how they relate. So now let's put that into context. Let's say, for instance, a bag of rice. A bag of rice in Benin costs about 41,250 CFA, when are the money they use, is the equivalent of $67. In Burkina Faso, a bag of 50 kilograms of rice costs about 21,000 then CFA money, $34. Cape Verde, a bag of rice costs 6,750 franc the money, $66.
So come to Salon.
So
now.
in Salon, a bag of rice costs 600,000, about $30. So we mean say in all of West Africa, 50 kilo bag of rice is cheaper than Salon, past the whole of West Africa, except for Liberia, where they all get the same thing. But we'll not stop the flour. Let's go to flour. Flour, 50 kg of flour. In Nigeria, 50 kg of flour costs about 32,549 naira. That's about $71. In Salon, almost it costs about 800 leones, weighing about $40. In Ghana, the Ghana cedis, a bag of flour costs about 950 Ghana cedis. That is about 77 US dollars. In Sierra Leone, it costs about 800 leones, $40. So it means even flour cheaper than Salone, past Nigeria, past Ghana, and Boku countries then. So this is the comparative analysis there. So when you say what in president don't do, I will analyze to you what in president don't
the
do.
600,000 where you give as example for bag rest in a salon, where you look at the minimum wage of workman, they think say commensurate for less survival be easy. 600,000, this now wait till you get. But if you go right now on the market, this price is beyond this, and it depend to the rest. Some rest and they sell them now at 640 or 650. Then look at the minimum wage. Sincerely speaking, you think say this in any way now easy way for let people survive in a salon?
No, because the fact of the matter is government, no, you don't ask the question. Government not get the kind of resources for me to make sure say they go increase all my salary. So it go meet the minimum wage. But even at that, we don't increase the minimum wage as of April to 800,000.
Is that reflective or is just in a document?
Yeah, but of course from April, because that's what we say.
So,
but then I also want to tell you what thing we do, because sometimes we can remember say even in Liberia be the queue for us. Then we get sausage of rice. Now here they come out, then can't take rest, then go around Liberia the queue. But throughout this COVID, one day people were not queue for rice.
But people
So
get
quick one.
challenged for survive. It's hard for people out there, Keke. Things are expensive, commodities, basic things that we people in need for a day.
Sapti, what I tell you say, it is hard for people all over the world. It is hard in Ghana. In fact, Ghana, the economy is so bad that then go to IMF. For my IMF give them bailout. So but what they say is, waiting government don't do for cushion then thing and day. So for instance, the Munafa Fund.
So quick one, Keke. I'll take you to a data, the last survey on food, access to food in a salon. This is according to an August 2022 food security monitoring system analysis. 81% of Sierra Leoneans households were unable to meet their basic food and nutrition needs. 15% were severely food insecure and needed emergency food assistance.
Yes.
That's not the last survey on food security or access to food in a salon.
Mm-hmm. So the point why they make is food security is everywhere in the world, not to just salon. But then the question is, what do we do for make sure say we as a government would try for invest in agriculture? So for instance, even on the self-food sufficiency, we don't improve, we don't increase on that one day.
How?
You understand? Because we make sure say by 2020, for instance, we don't grow more rice at the country. But all of them things there, when they happen, the fact is, government don't get specific targets the way they do for people. So I will give, for instance, the Munafa Fund. The Munafa Fund don't support over 6,000 people. It not stop there. We do for people cash transfers. Cash transfer back don't support people back across the country. So these are things the way that they give to vulnerable people for make them make sure say themselves able livelihood.
Okay.
So if the salary increase, we don't get salary increase from 2018 to 2022, we don't get to civil servants there, we don't get to security sector, we don't get to the ONS people we don't get to teachers them, people. So all of this put together, nothing the way I feel say able make sure say people are able to survive.
In all of the policy initiative and other things that we say government want to do for cushioning the hardship of people in the country, apart from the Ukraine and Russia war and COVID-19, we don't so much emphasize on as reason, as one of the challenge them. Why you think say the people still complain and ask for more?
Because people get, that is the nature of human beings, even when you're under. If 98.1 they pay 500,000, you get for ask for more because it's the nature of human being. Because everybody wants more. And that is not a problem. Because as a government, now you're responsible for make sure say you create the enabling environment. But waiting you get for understand, now the fact say, you get for look at waiting your government don't do, for make sure say, people in life at least, they try for improve, make you get the available environment, the structures, then put them in place. So when Dixon be even talk about tariffs and anything in there. I just want to give also one small statistics quick. That if we understand, say, we as a government, we also don't make sure, say, we even give subsidies to fuel in this country. we dey give subsidies to EDSA. Because you have to realize, say, beaucoup people in the way they connect, they know they pay the tariff, they know they pay to EDSA like illegal connections every day. So government, they spend huge amounts of money, even for subsidize the fuel, for also subsidize the EDSA, for the car power and the CLSG. So all things in there, government they do them, but because na government and you get the light and you make sure say the fuel there you get them available.
It's about the reflection on the ordinary people. Somebody get buy 100,000, then give 15 units. So you know they reflect. That's the issue.
Yes.
Then they are like.
So the challenge where the sector get na the fact say you get beaucoup in legal connections. You get people away they make sure say they know they pay. So how do you provide light in the circumstance where you understand there are many people who get illegal connections? So you can do two things. One, you go after the people who they do them illegally, but also look and see how, for instance, you go able to review around tariffs. But even with that, the tariff for don't go higher than that, but government they subsidize usually. So I will give, for instance, the figure. We subsidize from September 2022. We subsidize about 508.6 million new loans. We mean say we put money per EDSA for provide lights for the car power and make sure say people who they enjoy lights na Bo, na Kenema and part of Freetown back, they suffer too much.
Okay, continue for day with we.
Subsequent one, you can buy top up, meter top up.
Yes, but I don't establish the fact. I don't tell you say yes.
You can buy.
Yes, of course, the tariff is a concern, but the question where you ask that the fact say people the way they do illegal connections. Because government is subsidized this usually, how do you pay for them thing and day if, for instance, you don't review the tariff?
So that when they pay now, then they pull on to?
No. The point what they make is that they get large constraint in terms of fuel. For me, them put car power. Even with all of them tariff, then it's not even enough. So we mean say, let's say for instance, if they pay 5 units, because government they subsidize to EDSA, you that amount they for don't go far above that. But because of government intervention, it they make you say you they pay less than what normally for pay.
Thomas Dixon, we don't highlight and don't discuss areas them we don't talk about reducing wastages, we don't talk about the economy, we don't talk about the travel expenses, and also do we look at the fight against corruption in the last 5 years? How we can describe them?
Thank you very much. I think quickly, let's just go over. I see my brother, they make reference to the United States of America with the GDP per capita in London very high. And we want to see also they make reference to Ghana. Sierra Leone has the worst currency currently in the world, the most devalued currency in Africa. We are number 7 out of 7 nations rated recently. And I see also they mention, talk about the 50 billion I mentioned for traveling. That 52.1 billion is just for 2 years, according to the annual unedited financial report of the Ministry of Finance. It's just for 2 years. Not for saying 5 years. So imagine if 2 years, 52.1 billion. How much 5 years go there? Now coming to corruption. I think, as I say, corruption will get away in a salon way. We all been glad the way the president may say they can fight corruption. But as the fight they go, we begin to say corruption begin for the fight against corruption get color. If person are green, the fight against corruption, they richer.
You get instance of the institutions.
Yeah, there are instances. You know about the alleged $1 million involving former chief minister. Yes. You know about the rise at the Ministry of Basic Education involving now Minister of Labour, Alpha Timbo, over 40,000 bags of rice. You know about that. You know about the office of the First Lady recently in the audit report. And when you go to the audit report, this year audit report, last year audit report, you see plenty issues of corruption. And what do they see? The SEC, they do what Timmy go call them, they whitewash the report. Then go just come, then pull a report and say, this we don't settle this issue to this government agency. There is no transparency with it. I think now all of these things make the United States Human Rights Bureau, Human Rights Report, talk say with corruption, the fight against corruption in Sierra Leone is being fought biasly.
But when you look at the indexes or corruption results, Salon they perform well.
I agree with
lately.
you. On paper, Salon they perform very well recently. In the Transparency International Index, Sierra Leone perform very well. But the scores,
for
the
MCC,
I'm coming.
Salon they do well.
The scores remain stagnated. We will not improve in scores. We improve in we position and not in we scores. It remains stagnated. And then in the MCC where you mentioned, for the past 2 years before this recent report, we they score above 80%. But we just suddenly reduced to like 70-something%, which I think is a cause for concern. As I say, we say they don't arrest people when our opposition leaders. They arrest them for corruption, put them as CID, the likes of Richard Conte, the likes of Paulo Conte, many other people. But when it comes to government-owned corruption, where then they highlight, you see the ACC they get the kind of zest where they get for fact opposition corruption. Or corruption where they been do during the opposition. Corruption where you want for fact, I not forget color.
So Dixon, let's
corruption yesterday and corruption today, they affect the layman.
So
for example, when you go to the recent audit report, you get an issue of 18 NGOs where they give duty waivers, we not register with government. 18 ghost NGOs. You go to the audit report and the SEC not come out to not look at some of these issues. They not look at. There are issues where they for look into. They've not been looking at it. The issue of the former basic education minister I tell you about. Then tell we say because now trial by jury, they no go by that one day. But now we don't get new Attorney General. They not ever go back and say, Mr. Attorney General, we want to forget this trial, this case we want for trial by judge alone. They never do that. So for me, I think say in as much as we make effort for fight corruption, we have to be genuine.
But
we have to be genuine in fighting corruption and will not forgive corruption color.
Proponents of this government go tell you, see, then they're on record for suspend or remove a government official we in name mention the pan-corruption case. We are the Minister of Finance, we been the Minister of Agriculture.
That now because of the COI where a name be mentioned, not only one they remove, I think they also remove the secretary to the vice president, Fortune, where later on when them appeal and win the case, they bring them on board. So not only one. I think these are issues we good for the government do for remove people the way they named in a corruption report or people the way they mention a corruption report for when they investigate. It happened also in the case of Alpha Timbo. He was removed and the former deputy minister, they were removed until after investigation. It is, even though the investigation proves say they for charge in a court, but they still bring them come back on board.
So in a sincere basis
yes.
of judgment or ensuring say you assess in a sincere basis of assessment on this administration in 5 years, I mean, also you will place them in a fight against.
Well, let me know what.
Question will be the go out due to the migrant problem holding it. So I mean, trying to say.
So Dixon, like my colleague, they try for say in putting or analyzing the government's position and achievement in the fight of corruption. Who say you can put them? Or
well, I don't think say are they in the right position for begin for give marks to government. I think that left for the people. What do you mean they do now for put the cat on the table?
But you can able make your position
for let the people see.
You they analyze and comment on different issues.
I don't tell you say the fight against corruption is loop-sided. It is one-sided. We know they see the same kind of zest, the same kind of zeal where ACC gets for fight corruption in the former administration. We know they see that kind of zeal in this for fight this kind of corruption in this administration. Rather, we see who side case they can and they tell you say they go investigate from 1996. Issue we get for do with present day corruption. You say they can't go back to 1996. Meaning, you know one for, and at the end of the day, you just make recommendation. When we say implicitly, the person will involve corrupt. But you make a recommendation, say this now how they go by and as soon as for go by. We see recently.
But then ACC go tell you say they look for precedents.
Which president? Now you
That
if
in the
president
case of the first lady.
if president at the court they set up. Me love God and a lawyer. Nah, me not a lawyer. When they go to the court, steer decisions, stand by past decision. President at the courts, now they set up. So you can carry your case go and you go set your own precedent. And not me say past precedent day. Precedent not day. You can go and set your own precedent. Where other people then go stand by. But as I tell you, the fight against corruption, the guys, yes, some of them they support the former the current anti-corruption commission who we are happy supporting him in the fight. But when we begin for see say the fight is somehow biased, if you arrest this man for A, arrest this man for the same Mr. B for the same thing. But you know go arrest this man, then when it comes to Mr. B, you begin for tell you about policy. So that is my point. My point is, yes, we are on course in the fight against corruption, but corruption is being fought biasly.
Okay, Thomas Dixon,
Okay.
continue for the with me inside the program. We come to Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, President Bio in government fight against corruption in the last 5 years.
I mean, it's been the best that we've ever seen. I mean, the MCC, Sierra Leone passed the control of corruption indicator for 5 consecutive years. What did they tell you? This not to people in the judgery or assessory, no. These are people that we look at waiting the ACC don't do. Under leadership of participant Kelfala. 5 consecutive years. When we come by 2017, it was 49%. We move it up, we go up to 83% in 2021, and we come back down to 79%. Now, it tells you, say, that we are making substantial progress. But we'll not only stop there. Apart from the MCC, score Kalilongi, the Afrobarometer corruption prevalence, it don't dropped drastically. The Afrobarometer corruption perception survey, citizens safe. Whether they give them view about how this government or the ACC don't fight corruption, then tell you say they don't do a sterling work. But
So-
it don't stop there. Transparency International, and they quote all the way for you for tell you say these are independent people. The way they look at the statistics, they look at data, they look at the work they do.
But-
My brother and I, Thomas Dixon, my opinion in the game, and this is a democracy. A democracy, nobody for express your opinion.
But-
But me, they talk about evidence and factual basis. They talk about the audit report. This under this administration, the Commission of Anti-Corruption has been on record say now in are the only commissioner of ACC we don't make sure say you not only don't investigate waiting then at the audit report, but it don't prosecute and you don't get convictions.
Keke.
What about the saying?
On several
What
occasions.
about the
It's
saying?
on record.
What about the saying that the fight against corruption colorize? And for instance, in the point that say the fight is more on the opposition than the ruling officials. For the fight against corruption, you can give references them how many government officials the ACC don't indict.
Because the question is very simple. Under APC for 11 years, there'll be flagrant corruption because they're more corrupt.
So this
No, we are
present
talking about
Understand?
administration.
No, but now they
amongst
tell you no.
government
You didn't
officials.
ask me question. Say waiting make the fight against corruption in a more APC because they're more corrupt. And
So
because
in
they're more
this-
corrupt, then therefore make sure say them bring them with evidence then and get them to court.
So the
But
question
even under
is,
government, I want
how
say now,
many government officials this ACC don't indict for save the name of government from colorized corruption fights?
you don't just indict person because you feel say this person is SIB person on a minister. No, that's not how indictment works. Indictment, you therefore get evidence. And that evidence has to make sure, say, it passed the threshold, where make sure, say, if they can't go to court, then go find it guilty beyond reasonable doubt. No, they
So
can't. No,
you-
hold on. So if you feel, say, anybody in this government will corrupt, you get the evidence, come on anti-corruption commission.
So they say
Make them look at the evidence and then charge the person.
It's a corruption.
But if
They
it's
say-
under the government, we remember Dixie make mention of the rice saga. This rice saga, not to say now person a APC na Intokamo. No. This was the President Bio. Now himself talk say, let the anti-corruption commission make it investigate. So what people say you get whistleblower Dixie on newspaper, we can say, oh, rice saga. They know. This was the president on his own volition. We talk say, this rice business we don't cancel, make ACC investigate. He not stop there. The Minister of Information is on record. He don't care go in staff for make ACC investigate one of his staff there. So they tell you say we are proactive. Even in the fight against corruption, now we say as a government, now we don't go talk, say, okay, this person have to look into them. But like I say, just they indict because you are indicted.
So, Keke,
because when you go to court, then therefore look at the evidence and make sure say it reach the threshold for convict this person. If you don't get the threshold for convict this person, why do you indict?
So you want to say in all of the issue of this administration in 5 years in fighting corruption, according to you, start for describe as the best, and you make reference to the MCC scorecard and also Afrobarometer. But when you go out there in the public, you talk to majority people, then view totally they on the opposite for say it's like a one-sided something, just like waiting Dixon say. Why you think say if we not the fight corruption genuinely, people get a contrary view?
What now evidence for show say?
We don't do vox pop the way people they always state the same thing.
Yes,
say,
but vox pop
you don't hear
enough.
people
Okay,
they
but,
analyze the issue of
okay,
corruption.
but
Hold on the host where they try for tell you say yes, this administration they fight corruption, but they know they do one genuinely or in a rational basis. Then just focus one side.
Yes, but
so why you think say we tolerate when they do so yet still the view different from waiting the ordinary person they think?
Because maybe then people when they talk to them get their own prejudice. And they tell you, say, the Afrobarometer corruption perception survey of citizens. Them believe, say, the fight against corruption.
But that just survey and the reality on the ground totally different.
But you make reference to Vox Pop, me tell you about survey. These are the same people.
But then people in the way
but the point what they make is...
I think it is the same...
Exactly.
It is the same...
Exactly.
No, where the America, United States human rights on corruption say.
Hold on, Dixon.
No, you can't just
Dixon,
pick
allow him making points. So they bring you in.
Hold on, Dixon. So the point what they make is that even from the citizens' their own perspective, their own understanding of how the fact, that they don't rate this government and this ACC and Francis Benkala say, this has been the best we have ever seen since they create the ACC. Because of the level of conviction. In fact, under this government, the very first time, we make a special division of the High Court.
Okay.
Just for corruption. This goes beyond just we are against corruption. But it tells you, say, we are putting in place structures for make sure, say, the corruption will affect. People are speedily tried, they are convicted, and make sure, say, in circumstance, usai, then go for give money back, then take the money back now.
So many has been said on this administration in 5 years. On a general basis, you think, say, the public citizen for give President Bio a second chance and renew them vote as in vote for President Bio again?
Of course, because citizens they want more schools, they want more picking they forget enroll, they want more hospitals, more health facilities, they want make we fight the corruption. More continue for fair time. They want to make sure, say, we get more progressive legislations. I'm not even talk about the Gender Empowerment Act we will make. I'm not even talk about, say, we don't repeal the seditious libel law. I'm not talk about, say, we don't abolish death penalties. So citizens, they want to make we get more progressive legislations, access to energy. They want more electricity, access to water.
So it's all that time for make them
access to water. But I just want to give you a scenario. The scenario I want to give now this. You not landlord. You get your house. This house where you get a first tenant. This tenant, where you get at this place, he left this house in a very bad state. The roof be poil, boku thing them bad. Heavy rain come. It begin to stop small, destroy the roof. It not stop there. Then heavy breeze back come, it begin to stop. All of a sudden, you get new tenant with don't kind side. Don't begin make this thing fine one say the house don't begin to map fine. Then this old tenant, we don't pull this house before. This tenant will leave this house in a very bad state. Bank can tell you, say, landlord, do you give me this house back? But you get your house again, you know get. Because you're happy with this new tenant. Because you do extremely well for the house. You left the house in a good state. So I think, say, the people of this country, the sovereignty lies with them. And we believe, say, when they look at all what you don't do, all the achievement, and look at President Bio, say, he's very genuine. Not only in Sierra Leone, but also internationally. What you don't do. Globally for education and all things, then go give them another chance for making sure we continue to develop this country.
Okay, thank you very much, Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, for joining me inside the program today. We talk about plenty things about President Bio in 5 years. Thomas Dixon, would he round up the program quick one? In your role, give a general view on President Bio in 5 years.
I think say I go be disingenuous if I didn't and talk say President Bio not do anything good. I think say there is improvement in the free education. I refuse for put quality for the past 4 years, and they say free education.
Why the quality? Nobody in your words.
Well, for me, we don't see quality. We don't see the improvement. We don't see more classrooms. We don't see more enrollment in school. We don't see inside the school feeding not improve from 200,000 kids to 800,000 kids. I think that is good on its part. But also, more importantly, we also they fail in the economy. We know they get rights. We don't know what happened to the bank governor. Government not tell what happen. We don't know if they don't live to retirement or sack them. But we see inside we know they get to monetary policy right and fiscal policy they are not seeing working.
Thank you very much, Thomas Dixon.